Hello everyone. Today's question is, what is the remainder when we divide 15 by 30? If you thought this is an easy question and jumped onto the answer saying that 0 is the remainder, then welcome to the club. It is wrong. It is not the remainder. 0 is not the remainder. Then you think, oh no, it is 0.5. Sorry, that is also wrong because you're not focusing on the question. I'm not asking you to tell me the quotient when you divide 15 by 30 and you end up saying, okay, 0.5 is the answer. No. And maybe if you thought a little more, and I've seen some of the students do this, they might come and tell me that minus 15 is the remainder because 30 is big and 15 is small, and then they say that okay, minus 15 is the remainder. So no, in all these three cases it is wrong. So we are asking the question over here as to what is the remainder when we divide 15 by 30. The reason for some of these answers could be it's not that you don't know to solve long division problems, or you might be good with arithmetic calculations, but however this requires us to think a little bit and then come to the answer. Yeah, and I think there is one more reason which we usually do not consider with respect to tables. So that is something that I will talk about it, but probably at a later stage. Fine. So let's get on with it. So what was the question over here? The question is remainder. Just a second. The question is to get the remainder. Now, if I flip the question to 30 divided by 15, then they will say that the remainder is 0. This is indeed correct. Maybe you're questioning a little bit now and then thinking, oh, is it even correct? No, indeed, when we say 30 divided by 15, the remainder is 0. Why is the remainder 0? Because 15 divided by 30, writing in this typical division method, we will say that, okay, 15 multiplied by 2 gives me 30, so 30 minus 30, 0, so nothing remains here. Okay, so there is nothing remaining. Here we have our quotient, divisor, and dividend. So we have our divisor, and here is the dividend. Yeah, well, so this is fine. And also, if I were to ask you guys a question that 30 divided by 6, what is the remainder? Then again, you might say there is no remainder, because again, rewriting this in this way, you will tell that 6 into 5, 30. But exactly what is division? What does division even mean? Division is a very simple thing. We don't have to say it is repeated subtraction. I don't really like that. I like to think about division as a repeated subtraction. It like most people say that okay, multiplication is repeated addition, which also is not complete in its definition. Division as a repeated subtraction is not something that that does justice to what division is. Now, anyway, what does division mean? In simple terms, this you might have studied in your primary grades. What do we associate division meaning? If something has to be shared with so many people, then how much will each person get? So if there is 30 of something, say 30 cars are there, and then we have 15 showrooms, and we need to give each showroom equal amount of cars, then we say that 30 divided by 15, 2 cars per showroom. In much simpler way, what division really means is we are trying to ask ourselves the question, how many of these groups go into this number? Okay, so if you think about it as 30 divided by 15 in this form, all we are asking is how many of this goes into this. You can think of it in very simple terms. This is an analogy that I usually use, is I just take some kind of a mug, jug, or a water bottle, a bucket. You can think if you please Then say if this is a 30-liter bucket and this is a 15-liter bucket, then how many of these goes into this? That's what division is. How many of this will fit into this? Definitely 2 will fit into it. And what remains? No, nothing remains. The bucket will be filled. The bucket will be totally filled and there will be nothing left out. So we can think that the remainder, what remains, is 0. However, let's change the scenario a little bit. If I were to use 31 divided by 15, then what happens? So if I have a bucket which can have 31 liters instead of 30 liters, and if I have a 15-liter bucket over here, then definitely 2 groups of 15 or 2 buckets of 15 will go into this. But there will be a tiny weeny thing left over here. That is, 1 liter wouldn't have been filled with this. Now, how much is that? 31 divided by 15. 15 times. How many buckets went in? 2. And then that tiny weeny thing is 1 liter. So this is what remains. So this is what a remainder is. So I think you're getting a pretty good idea as to what it is, what division means. And then going back to our original question as to what is 15 divided by 30, what is the remainder in 15 divided by 30, then we need to rework on this question. Just ask as to how many of these groups, how many 30s go into a 15. So the answer is 0, not 0.5. We are here asking the question as to, okay, I have a 15-liter bucket, I have a 30-liter bucket. How many of these 30-liter buckets go into this? So the answer is no, 0. None of them will go into it. Then what remains? The bucket remains empty. The bucket is not filled up. So yeah, here we are considering that whenever we are going to fill, we have to fill this entirely. We have to empty this and use it fully to fill it up. So this 15-liter bucket cannot accommodate a 30-liter bucket. So therefore it remains empty, and what remains is entire 15 liters has remained empty. So there is nothing there. Okay, so rewriting this in division form, this way of doing division, long division method. So we say 30 times 0 is equal to, is equal to 0, and then 15 minus 0 is 15. So what is remaining is 15 liters. In this case, 15 liters remains. So this is what division is. In simple terms, always remember that you need to ask the basic question as to how many of this goes into this. That's all. How many of these groups go into this? And in this case, 0, and therefore 15 remains. Also, I told that there is something more that we forget. Whenever we say write something as a table of something, then we start with 15 ones are 15 or 30 ones are 30, and then we move on. So if I were to jot it down, 15 times 1 is 15, then 15 times 2 is 30, 45, and so on. Isn't it? And same thing with 30 also. So, or any other number that you take, you will end up writing it as 30 times 1. You start there, and then most of you might go up to 10. If you know the particular table, you will go up to 10. 30 times 30, 30 times 1 is 30, 2 is 60, 3 is 90. But yeah, why do we not write 15 times 0 is 0? Why do we omit this? Here also, 30 times 0 is equal to 0. This also we omit. If we don't do this, then this can be easily solved. This will be your first approach, right? So yeah, if we always start with 30 times 1, if we always start with multiplying a quantity by 1 and then proceeding further, then it is not complete. We need to see that, we need to understand that there is this quantity also. This is also a possibility, and if we take care of this, then fine, then we will get our answers better. All right, fine. So this was this short explanation on what is the remainder of if we divide 15 by 30. I hope you will think a little more going ahead when trying to answer such questions. Well, thank you for watching. We'll come back with more.